Hello and welcome to the ADHD Artist Podcast, where we explore and celebrate the lives of artists with ADHD. Listen to interviews with all different types of artists with ADHD, where we talk about life, art, superpowers, and... Wait, what was I saying? Hosted by Sarah Guys, your fellow ADHD artist. Thanks for joining. Hello, everyone. Today is July 16th. Hope everybody got their taxes done yesterday and that you're taking care of yourselves. I'm excited today because I interviewed my first cartoonist/comic artist on the podcast. We obviously have had a lot of performers, which makes sense because I'm a performer and I have a lot of performer friends. But ADHD obviously affects artists in all different mediums, all kinds of art forms. So I'm just really excited to explore that today and to continue exploring that. So my guest, Dominic Velando, is an artist in Tampa, Florida, who is known for Hyperfocus Dopamine, which is an account on Instagram that is webcomics/cartoons depicting a, and I quote, hulking man-child with ADHD. I've been following Hyperfocus Dopamine for a while, and it is very entertaining and also very truthful. So I appreciate that. I'll have the link to his Instagram handle, so you can follow him after you listen to this episode. Dominic is also directing an ADHD beginner series produced by ADA, ADD.org, and scheduled for release in late 2020. So really looking forward to that. All right, that's all I got. So here is the interview. All right, I am here with Dominic Velando, aka Hyperfocus Dopamine on Instagram.
At your service.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Absolutely.
I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. I love what you're doing. So I was really excited to connect with you because you are an artist with ADHD who makes art about ADHD. And I'm just fascinated by that. I have millions of questions. So have you had any moments in the past couple days where you've really noticed your ADHD?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, quite a bit.
Any particular ones that stand out?
A lot of just laying around, a lot of just being completely like overwhelmed with shit, and yeah, just having moments being like, oh my god, this is reality. This is my personal reality and like the external reality. You know, I say external, but it's a little country where I live, so you can kind of at least like feel like you're kind of in your own world a little bit, which is nice. Yeah, when that happens. I know for me, I just curl into a ball and try and like process that. Is that kind of how you manage it too? It's busier. Like if I could do that, it sounds kind of nice, but there's just no stopping. Yeah. I'm just crazy. I'm just really like sometimes I look at, I'm like, you're fucking crazy. Like just chill out. Yeah. Just hang out. It's great for relationships. The people, they love it. And sarcasm. Like, I just want to work all the time. So, but like, that's how I feel. Yeah. And sometimes I guess I do that more, but I'll find some stupid way to work. Like I'll have it so it's voice controlled, and then I have an iPad on a glass table, and I'm laying completely horizontal, but I can like talk to my iPad and work. Oh, okay. Do stuff like that. Yeah. Make it work for yourself. I guess, man. I mean, it's all in process, isn't it? Like we're all. That's true. We're exploring. We're finding out who we are. Exactly. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about when you were diagnosed, how old you were, and what that process was kind of like? Yeah. I'm still figuring the story out as I'm telling you, even though I've told this like a couple times, because there's a couple diagnoses in there where I just didn't do anything. was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I was like 21, so I went to a party or something. And then I went to another party, and then like years later, it's like, what was that about? They said I had ADHD and it was really important. And then it happened again. So it's not really a straight answer to say, yeah, I was diagnosed on June 4th or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I always kind of considered my diagnosis when I met a bunch of people. Like I went to this area, it was called a conference. It was the International ADHD Conference. And so there's like 600 people, and a lot of them are geniuses. Mm. And we all kind of talk the same. It's weird, man. It's really hard to explain, but I mean, you go to things like that, everything's kind of like ramped up anyway, because there's speakers and stuff and people are pumped up and like interesting things are happening. But that really was when I was like, oh, these guys might kind of understand what I'm talking about and why I'm talking about what I'm talking about. I don't have to explain anything.
Yeah.
So, and then they said, yeah, we call that finding your tribe. So that was their term to describe that. But that's when I was like, oh, okay. So
yeah,
this is a thing.
Yeah.
Because I was always just real skeptical of the whole concept.
Of the diagnosis.
You know? Yeah. So it took a little push, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Interesting.
You ever get skeptical of like
everything?
So what is ADHD?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let alone everything that exists. But like when you're like, does ADHD exist? Or is like, are we just talking about this thing? Because it has a new name sometimes.
Right.
Depending on how long you live, like in another 100 years it'll be called.
It's still being researched. And I also just feel like there's so much misinformation out there and so many skeptics that are there to be like, ADHD doesn't exist. And then we're hearing that narrative and starting to question ourselves. Like for me, it was like, oh, okay, so am I just stupid then? Am I broken? Like what, I mean, of course, like as we're growing up, we're going to ask.
You didn't really think that, did you?
I totally did my whole life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know a lot of other people who felt that too.
Here's what I'm asking is like, since you learned, so you were diagnosed when you were 8.
Yeah. But I didn't understand the diagnosis because I was 8, they were just like, it's like if, you have a headache and you take some Tylenol, it's why are you here? Just take this drug and it'll make you better in school. And that was all I understood about it for years. So
that's interesting. I have to have these conversations with people because for me, it was like, add 30 years to that. Or like, I was 34 when I found out that ADHD was a thing that I should take seriously. Or even try any kind of medication. So it's always real interesting to talk to people who grew up with it. So how do you feel about growing up with it?
I had a lot of challenges, mostly because like, again, I didn't understand really what it was, why my brain was working that way. There wasn't like a vocabulary to explain that to me.
Did you feel it, or did you sense it though, or you knew what they were talking about?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was like, I kept getting in trouble, and I was smart, and I was really like trying to pay attention. I wanted desperately to, but then I would just go like hug my friends in the line when we're supposed to be like standing, or I would just like start talking in the middle of like what everyone's doing, and yeah. So, and when I got to college, things were bonkers because I was abusing Adderall and it just was ugly. And so I've had a tumultuous relationship with ADHD medications.
Were you taking it for a long time before that?
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't remember it as much in high school. I don't know that I was taking it all the time, but like once I got to college and there wasn't a structure in place, it just completely threw me. And I moved from San Antonio to Los Angeles. Right. And that's a huge culture shock.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about exploring this because I'm curious, like with myself, what it would have been like if I hadn't been diagnosed when I was a kid. And I'm curious for you, what do you think it would have been like if you were diagnosed as a kid?
That's just it. It's like, it's real hard for me to get and like to play that game. You know what I'm saying? Like with what ifs.
Totally. Right.
Cause it's like, bro, it's not like Back to the Future. Like you just can't combine. So like I always want to, even if I play along with that, it's like, it's hard to say. All I know is that my life's been kind of just pretty much kind of just chaos. And then there was a certain point where it was like, wait a minute, let's put our attention on ADHD.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it was just the support, because I got lucky enough to get right into a big support group. And so like every step of the way, it's like there's mentors and there's all kinds of people like talk to.
Coaches. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a bunch of coaches so this group is called ADA.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been around for over 25 years or whatever. They're like, and it's a nonprofit and it's all volunteer run, but it's like, some of these people are geniuses. Some of them are like, there's a bunch of entrepreneurs. So it's like so valuable to be, and I get nothing for saying this. This is just people that, dude, that was my path. Is like, I bumped into these people. I wasn't there for them, but I was there for the conference. But then I met them, and then they're like, yeah, just jump on the Zoom calls with us. In fact, there's one right after this conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then met a bunch of coaches, and then like hired a couple of coaches, and like I actually found that to be really sweet. Like it was really effective. So yeah, but I do realize though that there's even for people who, because I see some people, it seems like they just kind of adjust, like it works. Like they early on they're just like, okay, well, you're gonna be on this drug, and then like they get a supporting, loving family, and then like they just kind of adapt. Like I feel like I've seen that in person actually. So I just kind of always assumed that that's how it was like for a lot of people who grew up with it. But then I find out like, no, there's just all kinds of shit that happens. Like,
all kinds of stories. Why do you think it took so long to get the diagnosis? Do you think that you had it as a kid?
Okay, so let me definitely not, because nobody talked about it. I didn't know what ADHD was until I was like 19 or something. And even before that, it probably got brought up, but it was like the butt of a not nice joke or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Of course.
And then it has like, it's just kind of, it's there, but like it doesn't really have any meaning to it. So definitely not. And then you find out about it and it's like, oh, this explains like 90% of things. I'm finding that a lot of the people I'm talking to were hyper as a kid or kept getting in trouble, that sort of thing. And yeah. You ever heard of this movie called Problem Child with Gilbert Gottfried?
No. Should I watch
it? It was from the 90s. I grew up like at the same time as that was coming out, as I was like living out the problem child life. Like I was absolutely bonkers all the time. Just incorrigible. It's like looking back, it's like, what would I have done with that kid? Because he was, and it was like, I think it was just a lot of boredom.
Yep. I can relate to that.
It was just like, just insanely bored, because it was, they put me, like once they put you in detention, that's the most boring thing you can do.
Right. It's like isolation.
So you're there in the like shame room.
It's a great term for it. Yeah.
And then like after 5 of those, then you start getting like half a day, and then you get like so many half days, and now you got to go to a day, and then you do a bunch of days, and they're like, now we got to talk about suspension. Okay. So now suspension means that you're going to be in there all day for 3 days, and you go get your lunch, and then you come back and you just put your head down. That's what we did. Put our head down in a hot room.
Yeah.
Like, dude, no wonder I was pissed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm missing it, and I knew I was missing it. Not only mostly missing out on the socialization. It's like, don't put me in a freaking room.
Yeah.
It's inhumane and weird.
Yeah.
And the irony is that my dad was a special ed teacher there.
Oh, interesting.
He insisted I go to the same school. I have to tell this as part of the story, because it's like, it is kind of interesting. And I don't hold anything against him, and I don't think anybody else does either. Especially because you hear that, like, you can be too close to a situation sometimes, I think. And then also, once again, nobody talked about ADHD in that school.
Right.
I literally don't think that anyone was trained in any kind of capacity where they're like, this is, there might be a kid that has ADHD and then that's what you do. So I just kept going crazy and showing up in the office and everyone's like, what's going on with Mr. Velando's son? I can laugh about it now.
Yeah, of course. It was so long ago.
At the time I was like 7 years old. I was like, what the hell, dude? Life is really intense right now because like you could feel it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a little bit of what it was like to just not have any idea what ADHD is about.
Right.
Because I'm sure that, I can't say I'm sure, but like, okay, so if we're gonna play the game a little bit, like what would have happened if I was diagnosed? Maybe I got on some medication and maybe it would have worked.
Yeah.
But don't know.
Yeah. And again, with the what if game, like we can't always play it. I'm curious to like imagine that kind of stuff, but it's not like we can go back and change it. You know, we all have our stories that exist, that's what happened.
I hear you. I mean, hey, I just kind of figured out like a little wrinkle, you know, but that is part of it though, right? I mean, that's part of like your, it's almost like, I don't know if it's classified as a symptom of ADHD, like DSM-5 or whatever, but you know, your self-identity is like a huge, when I talk to people, that's a huge part of what it's like, what it means to be ADHD is like the identity that you grew up with because you were acting out.
Yeah.
And then like the community around you responds in a certain way. And like, that's part of your diagnosis.
Right. So I feel like this is kind of a nice segue into when did you discover that you loved making art?
Well, I never discovered it because apparently I just started doing it.
Right out of the womb, just.
Yeah, they also say that, I say this on every podcast, so salute and apologies to anyone who's listened to all my podcasts. You get it. But apparently it's true though, that I just ran. I never crawled or walked, just started running and just started drawing.
That's amazing.
So that's how that started.
I want to talk more about hyperfocus dopamine and your drawing in general. But when you were a kid, did you find that you processed things through drawing, processed emotions?
I had to have.
Yeah.
Surely I did. I don't understand. I'm thinking about my old drawings, and last time I want to look so bad, but I gotta stay focused here. But I can tell you about like I submitted a few to a few shows and they made it in. But like one of them is The Greatest Sword in the World, and it's on like a college ruled notebook, and it's like the gnarliest sword you ever seen. And then another would be just something that said World War III, and then it's Mario's, and they're all fighting, and it's just pages and pages and pages of like bullets and bombs, fire and Mario's and toadstools or whatever. and then just dudes fighting all the time. It was always like super kinetic, and I love these characters.
Yeah.
Like some of them lived in my head. Like Mario was like my best friend when I was like 6 years old, and he was like hanging out in my head, and like when I draw him and then him fighting. So yeah, that was a common theme.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it was.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting how you don't realize like why you're doing it? You're just like, I have to, and then you look at it later and you're like,
nope. And just once in a while, his mom would be like, bust out like this huge tub of like just insane drawings, just years of drawings and drawings like on printer paper. Yeah, but I thought they were pretty awesome though, honestly, and not much has changed.
Yeah,
that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Is like, give me money and I'll draw like dudes fighting, and it'll be the craziest fight you ever seen. That's what I used to do. That's what I grew up on. I developed at an early age. Like, I feel like I have no choice at this point.
Yeah. I mean, you're so good at it. I've mostly followed Hyperfocus Dopamine, but you feel it viscerally when you look at your drawings. There's one in particular that talks about meds that I really liked, where it's like, before I take my meds, the perfect amount of meds, and then like too much meds. Yeah. I really loved that one, because the one that's too much meds is like the eyes are like popping out of his skull, and I have been there.
Eyes popping out.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was actually, I think I drew that after, I went to jujitsu class. Took a little, just too much meds. And like, for whatever reason, I reacted to it by, I was gonna lay down. And I just laid down right where I was. My coach is like, come here. And he like literally dragged me to a couch and he's like, what's going on? I was like, shit, I think it took too much of those meds. They're serious though, man. That's the crazy thing. And maybe that's why people responded to that, is because like, it's crazy that we take stimulant medication because it's a real ass drug.
Yeah.
It's a real hard drug. And a lot of people take it. And yeah, I was not expecting, but thank you. I mean, whenever people feel the work, it's like, good. That's, you know, I want people to get it, and I want people to, I want to reach the right people, basically,
right,
who need to feel it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's something, I don't know, maybe there's something to be said about like my attention span, to where it's easier to just draw like things moving fast, or like just emotions and just intuitive things. But I love that though, like having that kind of conversation with people. So I'm really glad to hear. I'm always glad to hear when it's hitting.
Absolutely. I want to ask my favorite question that I always ask on this podcast.
Ooh, okay.
Which is,
I want to hear the favorite question.
What does it feel like to draw?
What is it? Do you draw?
I dabble.
What's it feel like to dabble?
Are you evading this question? I'm so curious because you do it so often. You've been doing it for so long, and I'm just like, I'm curious what it actually feels like in your body and your brain.
You know what's crazy is that I feel like I do want to know about other people's drawing habits, because I do want to, and also maybe I want to know what it's like for other people, because it's definitely a hyper-focus thing. Like I'm not here. Like I'm here in the room, but I'm like in the place where you go. And I don't know, I see my friends do it. That's why I think even like, man, shouts to my ADHD tribe. But like the first tribe is the artist though, for me.
Yeah. And
the artists know what that's like. They call it the flow experience. But you just go to a place.
Yeah.
And I can tell you it hurts more. That sucks. Cause like the more you do anything, you know, and like I tend to do it to the point where it's like, you gotta chill. Like in my head, I'm like, you gotta chill out. Just keep drawing. And then like my hands hurt and shit. And posture starts getting crazy. So that's like a battle that, like, God, turned 36 in a month. And it's like, it's crazy. There's a switch that gets hit all of a sudden. And you're like, oh no, I'm in my 30s. It hurts now.
Yep. I feel like I felt it at like 28. When I turned 28.
You can feel it at all. I mean, yeah.
Right. And it was like, oh no, things really hurt. I can't do as much as I did.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
I feel the same in my head, but
right.
this broke.
Exactly.
But like, and shouts to people who you know, yeah, man, some people grow up with pain and stuff like that. I don't mean to make light, but it's like,
sure,
there's definitely, you know, and I'm used to being hyperactive, and it's like there's a kind of feeling of being trapped too.
Yeah.
When you're real hyperactive mentally, and then and then the physical starts slowing down. It's rough. But so I bring that up because it's a new thing in my drawing process, and so that's what it feels like now.
Interesting.
Is it's hyper focus, and it's going in that mode, which is a very like peaceful mode.
Yeah.
But it's also, there's been pain introduced. It depends too. I'm really finding like I had to really start grabbing cash once the pandemic hit, or at least I felt that I needed to.
Yeah, it was
like,
scary.
oh no, I got quarantine, I got to make money, and I think my job did dry up at the same time. So I started drawing for money, doing commissions of like just family portrait type stuff, and I'm not gonna lie, like as much as I love connecting with people, because a lot of the people reached out were family and friends. It's work, you know, it's a job.
Yeah.
Especially the more you let them pile up. And so I had to like change the commissions. People were like, you doing commissions? You're not I'm like, I don't know, dude. If I take too many, then I feel like I'm going crazy by the time I do the 25th or whatever. Doesn't matter how much I'm charging. I'm going crazy. So it's just, I guess you could say it's a relation. It's like, a relationship. It's like, well, there's things we're working on, but it's moving along. We're in it. We want to be in this relationship.
Right. It takes work.
It's right, but it takes work.
Yeah. It's interesting. You asked me if I draw, and I do. And I was going to say, when I'm drawing, like it's very much like stick figure type things. And I do it very quickly. It's just like, I like write a quick thing down and move on, or like draw a quick thing. But when I'm acting specifically on stage, I am in the zone, and it is this, like, it's the most alive.
You go to your place. You got a place, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's that place. But I think you bring up such a good point where, in acting, we experience this too, where you do it because you love it. And it is the thing you love most in the world. And it makes you feel alive, but it is also work. And some of the things that you have to do, like auditioning and like projects that pay
everything
really
around
well,
it,
but are crap. Yeah. It's like we have to do that so that we can keep doing it. But then if we do that too much, then we fall out of love with it, and we don't want that to happen. And that's at least my experience with acting.
And I take back what I said about everything around it. It's just, there's so many things that come with it. It's the price, right? Like you figure out what kind of price you want to pay. And Absolutely. As an actor, you got to pay a very specific price that a lot of people aren't going to understand. Yep. But you got to do it. You're the one standing in lines and like waiting and doing all kinds of stuff that's uncomfortable, but that's what you signed up for.
That's exactly right.
So have you been acting since you could remember, or was it
since I was a kid? I really loved performing since I was a kid, and I really loved singing and dancing. And I mean, I have like 2 left feet, but I still love it. And
that's okay. You can move a couple left
right. I mean, humans are designed to like move. It's
yes,
like,
they are.
Right? It makes you feel good, but
can I make a point about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, and once again, if you're hearing this for the 3rd time, shouts to you. But this is real though. This is what I'm loving about studying this ADHD thing, is that what you're saying about humans are designed to move. So look, a big part of my ADHD management has come down to like moving around. And we've been talking about this whole podcast. Moving around. I was running around. I'm drawing.
Yeah.
I'm moving. And it's like the way I have to manage ADHD is to move even more, and to do it in a focused way, and to hit, it's called working out, unfortunately. But it's not always called working out. Like you can do whatever. But so then I started learning a little bit of the science of it. Man, there's this guy, his name's Huber. And he works at a big university. So disrespectful. I should have prepared, like I should really prepare to like walk this guy out a little more, because I talk about him all the time. Like the work that he's doing is real fascinating. But he was trying to relate it to, like, there's an evolutionary reason that you get anxious. Is because it's your body telling you it's time to move, because usually there's a predator there. But we grew out of that, and we developed society, and we built up walls, and now we don't have to run anymore. We don't have to run for our life. But we're still freaking out.
Right.
So our body's like, go, go, go. You got to run for your life. But it's 2020, so we don't have to do that.
Right.
So
in fact, we're supposed to stay inside.
You're not supposed to get up, dude. Why are you getting up?
Right.
Like, if you get up, I know you're not working on that thing that I'm expecting from you, or whatever it is. And so you don't get up, and so you just sit there looking at the screen.
Yeah.
And then you're freaking out, and then get used to freaking out. And this is like the thing that I'm really starting to get into with studying ADHD, is that there seems to be like a relationship with stress response. It's how you respond to stress. And it's like a big part of it is you move around, because your body is programmed to tell you to move around. And so when those messages, they got to go somewhere, that energy has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So if there's one, like, that's one of the big messages that I'm spreading right now, is not so much like work out, dudes, but like,
right.
Here's an interesting reason by a guy who's out there who's an experienced scientist talking about this type of thing, and like, just for people to just look at that, just to spend a little more attention on it, because it's not just ADHD things. It's not just an ADHD thing by any means. It's what people are dealing with right now.
Yeah,
there's a lot of scary stuff happening. So it's like, how do you respond to stress?
Yeah, I think I've said this on every podcast episode so far, is exercise is one of the key elements to dealing with my ADHD. A lot of times I exercise to remind my brain that I have a body. and
that's a pretty good way to put it.
Yeah. And then I do, and I can focus better. I am more patient. I just feel better. And any day that I don't at least move my body, like move around, I feel the effects of that. So you said that that's part of your toolbox in dealing with your ADHD is exercise. What are there any other tools that have been helpful for you navigating it?
Giving up sometimes. It's kind of like being like, well, this is what time it is, I guess. Like, things are a mess, or like
giving yourself some space and taking the pressure off.
No, it's kind of a letting go thing. Just, I think a lot of times trying to see what time it is, trying to get a sense of what the energy is with other people around you. Because sometimes I want to manage my ADHD. It's like, then I talk to people that live nearby me, and they're like, yeah, man, I'm just in a funk. I'm like, I just can't get started. And I'm like, oh.
So that's a human thing too.
Oh, right. Yeah. We're just, humans aren't always freaking Jason Statham, like kicking doors down all the time, man. And I'm especially learning that, I know that's like a hell snarky answer. Like, it's, but it's working for me though. And then I talk to people who, or what was it? Seen all over the place, people talking about sometimes artists and creatives gotta just do a whole lot of nothing and just be bored, essentially.
It's so important, like, for your imagination to just be bored and get curious about the world again, right? Do you feel that?
That's part of the reason that I suggest meditation to people, and I'm just realizing it now, is that it's not just about the meditation. Meditation is sweet, you should do it. It's really good for you. But also it's super boring. It's the most boring thing you'll ever do.
Right. Just sitting still.
Because you're not doing nothing. So what's more boring than that? So when you're bored and you dig into like intense boredom, man, for me, oh man, the best stories, or the best, well, that I say stories because to me, the most entertaining thing in the world is a good story. So that's when the stories start popping up. People are always asking me, what do you do for creativity? And my problem is creativity is like, it's exploding out of my eyeballs all the time. Yeah. I have to try to control it. But I will tell you though, that if you want to know how you can increase your creativity or tap into creativity, I suggest go do something like meditation, or go put yourself into a situation where you're really bored. You just have to just stand there or sit there.
Yeah. Mindfulness meditation changed my life. Yeah, because it changed, it helped me. One of the things about acting is that it requires you to be present, because anything can happen at any point and you still have to say that line and you still have to move forward. So one of the things that's great about mindfulness meditation is it's all about having a lot of thoughts in the background and still choosing to focus on one thing.
You're grounded.
It grounds you. Exactly. And yeah, meditation is, that is right up there with exercise for me. So a lot of the people that I've had on this podcast so far are actors, singers, performers, like that kind of thing. But people with ADHD are incredibly creative, and we have our different art forms, that we choose if we're ADHD artists. And I was fascinated by how that affects you when you're drawing and all that.
Man, I do get uncomfortable talking about myself sometimes. So I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say it.
Yep, I feel
like it's crazy. It's like, what am I like? I talk about myself for a long
you feel like you're like
time.
wasting people's time. Like, no, talk about you because you're much more interesting than me. You
feel like you're wasting people's time. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
it's weird. And then people, like a year ago, or however long ago, I started digging in this ADHD stuff, and I started telling people my story, because I was a hot mess. I needed to talk about some stuff, so I started talking about stuff. People started running up to me afterwards, like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you shared that." And I'm like, "What?
Yeah,
like, that was bullshit, dude. Like, what?" And I started listening to it and being like, "Oh, people want to hear this."
Sure, they really do. I did when I was younger. I wish that I had had role models who were artists and were making it work, so that I could be like, like just living with it and managing it. And so that I feel like that would have improved my confidence a lot. So
yeah. And artists are already, we struggle with,
oh my God, the self-esteem.
We're insecure.
We are.
We're kind of insecure sometimes. And even like the really good ones, the really successful ones, I should say, the really famous ones, are like, they're freaking out.
Absolutely. It never ends. It's not like, you get to a certain point and you're like, I've made it. It's like, well, I'm still an artist and I still have to fulfill myself and also make a career. And
good news is it never ends.
Yeah. Yeah. The bad news is never ends. The good news is it never ends.
Well, hey, and that, I guess that's part of why, like, I appreciate having the platform, like the Hyperfocus Dopamine thing, to try to share what I'm learning, which is that stress response is a cool thing to investigate, especially for artists, especially for people who are trying to figure out the ADHD thing. I'm always trying to share, like, if you follow me, you've seen me, like, I'll post on my story this little dude, and then there's a bell, and then it has text, and it says, "Close your eyes for a second, take a break." So I try to send that out at a regular time so people don't expect it and stuff like that. And different things like that, to just get people just chill out just a little more. I'm not saying I'm a lot, dude. I'm a lot to hang out with. I'm hyper, but it's like, I do see it where people could use it. Just a little more time to ground yourself, get connected with yourself, not get too carried away with what some people might have said or what people are doing, because I get it. So, like, I really trying to steer the direction of that whole thing, honestly, towards as much as I want to just make jokey jokes and, like, do really silly things and outrageous things and be irreverent. It's like, man, I see the need out there for some leadership and for people to have some peace of mind. So, I say it here, and I'm going to try to say it, if you follow my stuff. So if that's the type of thing you're into, then that's what I'm out there trying to say.
Yeah. How was Hyperfocus Dopamine born? Where did that character come from?
1 year ago, I was coaching with a guy, July 4th, and he was like, I think he just kind of was looking at me. He's like, this guy's drawing all the time. And then his whole thing was like the hero's journey.
Oh, yeah.
And using it to kind of help you, guide you through whatever it is that you're doing. So hero's journey comes from Joseph Campbell, and it's like comparative mythology. And he kind of compares all the myths and shows, like, there's this particular story where people go into the underworld and they come out of the underworld and they learn something, and they usually bring something from the underworld. And it tends to be very relevant. And I don't know, maybe partly I've seen it challenged in other ways, but it was really helpful for me. And that was part of it. The guy said, well, why don't you draw like this hero type character? I don't remember the exact words that he used. It's like an alter ego, like kind of a higher version. And I started doing that, but then I was like, it's funnier though? Is doing this, like, guy who just does idiotic stuff and, like, stuffs his face with cookies and shit, and, like, smokes weed and does all the dumb things that is like, and I guess part of that was just being irreverent, because I see, like, a lot of the self-help stuff, and it's like, I agree with all of it. Like, I appreciate all of it, but also, like, in order to make it funny, like you gotta kind of just like flip it.
Yeah. Well, it's more engaging for me that way. It's like it takes the pressure off. Like you get to learn something about yourself, but also you get a laugh out of it.
Yeah, man. And you know, I don't know. To me, that's just like, that's what I'm going for. It's just sharing a chuckle with people, like ultimately. And it's crazy that you can do that so well through just like an Instagram. But it's sweet though. I mean, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate that. Like you connect with people all over the place, and like I got a friend in this part of the world, like, and we're sharing chuckles together. It's crazy.
Yeah. This is my own curiosity kicking in. How long does it take you to complete a drawing of Hyperfocus Dopamine?
It's changing.
Okay.
So there's no, once again with me, I got to make it difficult, and there's no easy answer. Especially because I'm not doing the comics anymore. Yeah, I might do one here or there, just impromptu, but I'm trying to make cartoons. I'm trying to make animated ones. And I'm in the learning process with that, so it's hard to say. When I first started, man, I was dropping a couple comics a week, and then each of those would take, I think I started out pretty good. Let me try to give you a range between 45 minutes and 6 hours.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot on your arm when you're drawing.
I'm crazy, dude. I'm really crazy like that. Like I see other artists and they're just like like just draw the same comic every day and then just collect some money. And hey man, I'm not by any means diminishing what they're doing. They're working hard. But it's like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you just do the same thing every day? Like it would be great because you could just what to expect.
Right.
I can't do none of that, dude. Like I think I'm getting better at it, maybe. Or maybe it's just I'm changing the model. So for instance, I'm making this animation right now. I made a few that I actually, now that I think about it, on Hyperfocus Dopamine, I probably have a dozen animations, and they're 8 to 12, and they probably took me an hour or something because I figured out how to do it a little faster, but they're only about 3 seconds long. And now I'm trying to do one that's like an episode, kind of not a 20-minute, but like a short. So it's going to turn out to be like 1 minute, but even that 1 minute, it's like, how long are we doing this?
I can imagine. Yeah. It just takes forever.
Why am I doing all of the work? Why don't I could go and get a job, and then I could just outsource this. I could have somebody do this part. I could have somebody do this part I know people. This person can do it for $50. And I don't know, maybe I'm telling you this on a podcast because I'm trying to tell myself.
Yeah.
Maybe I will do it after. But the thing is, it's like, I don't know. I'm going to do what I do.
Right.
That's the crazy thing about, like even trying to answer a question like, how long does it take to draw comics? It's like, dude, I just kind of do things, and it's really hard to track the time. It's really hard to schedule it. I just kind of do it. And then I try to tell you afterward, this one took like 6 hours and this one took 45 minutes. And I'm still going for some reason.
Yeah. That's interesting, because I was going to ask you, like, if you have any dreams in terms of like animation in the next few years, like goals or things that you'd like to do.
It'd be cool to get into I want to say into a big studio, but it's like, I don't know enough about what it looks like. And I don't know if I would get into that type of situation and realize I was just kind of romanticizing it.
Yeah, that happens. That happens, doesn't it? But it doesn't always, sometimes it can be, we all have our own journeys. Yeah.
Maybe I'd love it. Maybe I wouldn't. That's just it, is that, it's crazy, man. I have goals in terms of, I'm going to be dropping this animation soon, and then I'm going to keep it going. Then I'm going to be able to say that I achieved this goal of creating the first series where the main character has ADHD.
Oh my gosh.
Or was
I will be right there supporting that.
Something
just so you know.
Can't take that away from me.
Yeah.
There may be better ones later, but I was the first.
Yeah.
So that's about to drop. But other than that, I really do want to, I don't want to say dreams because I see myself going that direction, but I would really like to animate stuff where things are just flying fast, people fighting, things are hilarious. There's voice actors who are really funny. There's maybe comedians involved, just funny writers, something where there's a good team, and we're making something that's fast paced and hilarious.
Yeah.
And dude, if I can get into something like that, I'll be pretty happy. And I don't know what it's gonna look like, but it's, next few years I can see it.
Yeah. Well, you put it out there in the universe and you never know.
You try, you say it.
Exactly. So we kind of already went over this, but my last kind of question is, do you have any projects that you want to tell us about, things we can support?
Here's the one that I've been pushing, other than my imaginary, crazy fight movies that I'm going to apparently make. And then I look out for that. Stay tuned to Hyperfocus Dopamine. I'll tell you about it. But also I'm working with Ada on this video project. So it's called The First 90 Days is the working title. And the idea is that if you were just diagnosed with ADHD or you are about to investigate it, this tries to show you what it might look like. And it's half podcast to where we got a bunch of people together to talk about it within ADA. People who are real smart, people who, kind of articulate ADHD, they volunteer with ADA. And then the other half of it is just kind of guiding you through some resources that ADA has. And then and then also introducing some, ADA has this really good archive of webinars and videos that they've done with scientists and counselors and professionals and researchers. So then people will be able to get a little dose of researchers talking about the science of it. And then you see real people talking about it. And then, so that's coming out on YouTube for free.
That sounds awesome.
It's going to be probably 5 parts. And then I think the idea is that if it hits, then we'll keep doing it, and we'll do another season basically, and we'll try to make as many as we can, or at least until it is for a finite audience. But yeah, we just want to reach that audience, and it's been in production for a while, things are, but I think we are shooting for this fall to release that. So if you're curious about ADHD, you're looking into it, you just got diagnosed, Ada is going to be producing this, and then I'm, I guess, directing or editing it. So if you follow either one of us, you'll find out about that. And I think it'll be a good resource. I hope it will be.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So if people want to follow your work and that project in particular, what's the best way for them to do that?
ADD.org.
Okay.
Is Ada's website.
Okay.
So Ada they are, they're a little dated on their social media. I apologize to people who have to type that in and go to a website, but you'll have to go to ADD.org, which while you're there, you might want to check into it, because they're like my first family as far as ADHD. And they do have good resources. They've been Zooming and doing support groups since way before it was cool, for 4 years or something like that.
That's awesome.
And they do it, and some of them are hosted with, I know these people. Renee Crook is a certified clinician, and she hosts webinars that happen every week. So if you're into that type of thing, then you go to ADD.org and you sign up, and then you can jump in their support calls. I was doing them for a while. It really helped me out. And then, they got other resources and stuff. But if you follow what they're doing, or you check their website and see what's going on with them, there's any number of ways you can interact with them. And then they're definitely going to blow it up. We're going to blow up this project. And then as for me, it's just Hyperfocus Dope, on Instagram.
Great. That's the best platform to follow you. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's all I got for you. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we let these guys go?
Everybody chill out. It's good for you. I'll try to do the same. I don't know, man. I'll just if you enjoyed this, holler at me, let me know that you enjoyed it, or Sarah. I'd love to hear from people. And mostly I'm just I always enjoy kind of connecting with my people.
Yeah.
Out here in the tribe, as we call it.
Yeah. Same here.
So hit me up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Dominic, this has been such a joy to chat with you and connect with you. Thank you so much for being here.
It's been a joyous occasion for me as well. I'm really glad you reached out. I had a lot of fun, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You too. And we'll follow each other on Instagram, and it'll be great.
Yeah, we'll all be fine.
Exactly. All right. Take care. See ya.
Bye.
And that's it for today for the ADHD Artist Podcast. This podcast was produced by me, Sarah Guise. Original music composed by Christopher Aaron Nahr. You can find more of his work at www.christopheraaronnahr.com. Nahr is spelled Knarr. Podcast artwork by Joseph Ramsky. For any inquiries, you can contact him directly at jramski3@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at the ADHD Artist Pod.